Kimberley Hospice is located in a rural community, an hour's drive from a city, and yet there have been patients who've come from, a 17-hour car drive to this rural village looking for help. There are people who are coming from Nairobi, the capital city, who need this service and they can't find it. And so as we look to expand into Eldoret to a larger city where it's much easier to access by road, by plane, and even closer to hospitals so that doctors can be referring much easier, the impact that we will have on the larger healthcare system, it's hard to even imagine how much we're going to be able to care for more patients as well as educate healthcare providers so that they can then extend the services further. In Kenya, with a population of 44 million people, Kimberley is the only inpatient hospice providing care to children. Can we do the pain scale with her? Last time she took
10.
It was 10 when she arrived.
And then it went down to 4.
Okay.
Sasa, unakumbuka siku ile? Tukisema.
So somewhere between a 4 and a 6.
4 and 6.
Rachel's assessing Alice. She's been with us since it's been about 4 days now, and she had come in a sickle cell crisis with excruciating pain. She still has some pain in her right leg. So I think she's going to need to go this week to start at the cancer center. So I think we can make sure that they get a good history and labs that we can't do here.
Asante.
Then do you think she could start doing some basic physical therapies?
Yes.
Okay. Alice is a 7-year-old who I met after her mother passed away during childbirth, and the baby survived and was brought to the hospice. So I met Alice through the baby, and she's one of 8 children who we've been getting to know over the past few months, and she was diagnosed this past week with sickle cell disease after baby Ryan was also diagnosed a couple weeks ago. Sickle cell disease, it's an inherited disorder that causes a person's red blood cells to change shape. This defect causes chronic pain and anemia, as well as puts the children at significant risk for many life-threatening complications. I can only imagine the journey that the suffering that she's had during her life, because it wasn't diagnosed, her pain wasn't acknowledged, it wasn't treated, it wasn't something that she's just struggled with it. In bringing Ryan into our home and deciding for him to become a part of our family, it means all of his brothers and sisters are now a part of our family too, whether they sleep in our home or not. They're who I think about as I go to sleep at night. In the last 6 months, they've lost their mom. A few months before that, they lost their dad. They've lost so much, and on top of that, they're sick. So to be able to really fight for them, it just feels like this is not a journey that I knew we would be on, but I'm so grateful that we get to stand with these kids so that they don't have to do it alone. Our very first patients, before living room was living room, were children. These kids, they need a place where it's a refuge for them. When I look at the expansion project, it's a really big dream, it's a big venture, and yet it is the next step.
One of our biggest hope in expanding to Eldoret is the opportunity to serve countless people who need our service. That opportunity, we are seeing it coming through in Eldoret. We are seeing the people who really suffer a lot, are unable to come all the way to Kipkaren, are going to make it to the Eldoret Center.
So this land is literally a 5-minute drive from a city with a population of about 1 million people.
The feeling of this place, you cannot feel that you are really in the city, but actually we are within the city, but the trees, the scenery, the beauty of the flowers.
So to have 8 acres that we could purchase that have this kind of trees and garden areas, like I didn't know it existed, and can compare this to, a few minute drive where it's concrete and masses of people and congestion and traffic and noise. This is a really, really incredible piece of property to be able to have that close to the city, so that it's not far for people to get here, but then once they arrive, they can enter into what feels like a sanctuary. Being near a newly opened cancer center, it's going to make the ease of referrals much better. Currently, it's estimated that 80% of the patients who come in with a cancer diagnosis, by the time they're getting diagnosed, it's beyond cure. So a majority of their patients actually do need palliative care or hospice services. Having a center that's, in a strategic location, I'm afraid we may be overwhelmed with patients, and yet we need to stand in that gap, and we need to, again, fight for patients and their families to have the kind of care that they deserve that currently isn't available to them. I absolutely believe that God's heart is for orphans. It's for the brokenhearted. It's for the vulnerable. And yet there's also this mandate, this privilege, this opportunity that as God is fighting, He uses us. He uses us to fight for the orphans. He uses us to fight for the widows, to fight for those who are sick and dying and don't have access to pain medicine and access to care.